Is the Spokane real estate market headed for a crash? Short answer, I don't believe so. Now, I cannot speak for the rest of the country, not even the state of Washington. This analysis is only for Spokane County. If you're seriously considering a housing move, like on a scale of 1 to 10, you're an 8 or above, not a 5, not a 6, not maybe if something comes along, not only if I find a bargain price, nah. This video isn't for you. I hate to use this word, but the buying market is brutal out there. It is very nerve-wracking if you're not going to prepare yourself. So what's an 8 or above? Well, you're a family that needs another bedroom for your newborn, or you've been transferred by your employer to work here in Spokane. Or perhaps you're fortunate enough to have some extra money and you want to invest it right now because you're hedging against inflation. You want to park your money in real estate instead of stocks, precious metals, or even Bitcoin. And I'm not saying that you should believe that it's an inflation hedge, but it is you, the buyer, who believes that. In other words, I don't need to convince you, let alone tell you. Now, at the beginning of our economic recovery in 2011, Spokane home prices were at $160,000. Right before COVID hit, we were at $270,000. That's an annual appreciation rate of 8.33%. The national average was about 4%. Now, if we project this rate, then a normal 2020 should have been about $292,000 as indicated by the blue column. Instead, the X factor increased it by $21,000 for a total of $313,000 to end last year. And what's the X factor? Well, these are the extraordinary reasons that motivated buyers to pay extra. As you might imagine, I talk to a lot of out-of-town buyers. Spokane is one of the least expensive cities in the entire western half of the country. So during our quarantine, the companies that made money are the big tech firms, among others. Everyone flocked online, and the lucky ones continued to work from home. Consequently, the employees of Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Zoom, to name a few that are located in the big cities in the West Coast, well, they continued to make very good money. And that fueled the housing appreciation in the big cities. As a result, the other working class folks who aren't in the tech industry have been priced out. So they look elsewhere for affordable housing. In addition, they also mention things like COVID concerns in a densely populated large city, or the social unrest and riots that went on last year, and in some cases, local crime that is spiraling out of control. So for the first 6 months of 2021, buyers pushed up the median prices to $369,000 or 16.5% more than what the normal price should have been. Now, historically, the second half of the year is stronger with more sales and higher prices. So this red component could even go higher by the end of this year. So, are we in a real estate bubble? A bubble happens when there is an abnormal market pressure on supply and or demand. Usually, it's the result of an intervention which may or may not be intentional. This cannot be sustained in the long run. So the bubble bursts when one of the factors could not be pushed any further. Back in 2008, for example, in the last market crash, money was not only cheap, but it was easy to get a loan. Borrowers could simply declare that they made $200,000 a year. The banks took their word for it and didn't need any documentation as proof of income. These were also known as subprime loans. Well, some buyers didn't even need a home because they already had one, but they either took out a second mortgage or a new loan altogether and bought investment property. They were speculating that prices would go up, so they bought before the start of the construction, hoping that after a few months or a year, they can resell for a profit. So in this case, artificial demand was the unintended consequence. Easy money was the intervention. Meanwhile, the home builders kept producing the supply. Now, actually, this buying frenzy didn't happen too much in Spokane back then. So compared to the big cities, Spokane was mildly affected by the financial turmoil. However, unknown to the public, the bubble was building up. The home buyers started to miss on their monthly mortgage payments. It happened very slowly, under the radar. So for most people, it was an overnight surprise. The president at that time and his Treasury Secretary went on national TV and simply announced that the banks needed help. The missed mortgage payments turned into defaults, which led to an avalanche of foreclosures. The banks needed a bailout. In other words, the crashing of the economy was caused by the housing industry. So now, let's examine what's happening today. The demand is strong, with a lot of buyers escaping from the big cities. They want to get out so bad that some of them are paying insane prices in cash. Or even if they were financing it, their cash deposits were high enough for the banks to exempt their purchase from an appraisal. And an appraisal is simply a professional opinion of value. So after the last market crash, the lending rules were changed so that the banks cannot loan out money that is more than what the property is worth. Today, this appraisal mechanism prevents the prices from getting out of control. So now let's take a look at how homes in Spokane are bought. This graph tells us that we have an increasing number of conventional loans and cash purchases. Conventional loans have very strict rules requiring proof of stable income. Usually higher down payments and an appraisal is required. In other words, these are not subprime loans. So going forward, there are two possibilities for the economy, either up or down. Scenario A, the economy goes into a recession or even worse, a depression, and we have widespread unemployment nationwide. I believe it will have a marginal effect on the Spokane housing market. Not minimal, not significant, but somewhere in between. Why? Well, cash buyers don't have a mortgage, so they're not relying on employment. Conventional buyers have been strictly qualified, so they are more likely to weather the storm. They have a higher down payment, the loan amounts are smaller, so their homes are not likely to go underwater. The number of foreclosures are going to be much lower. The homes in trouble will sell first before the banks foreclose on them. And who's going to buy these homes? Well, God forbid if we have a huge event that causes a depression, will there be chaos in the big cities? Will people continue to be motivated to escape? What do you think? You be the judge. Now let's head on to scenario B, where the economy comes right back roaring like it was before COVID. Then the coastal cities will continue to prosper, their home prices will continue to go higher, and Spokane continues to be more desirable. The X factor kicks in. So now let's talk about supply. Well, back in 2008 and 2010, a lot of builders went out of business because there was an oversupply of foreclosed homes. The sad reality is that they never came back, even as the normal population growth caught up with the excess supply. A recent study by the Spokane Association of Realtors revealed that we are short of homes by almost 32,000. So in conclusion, the demand for homes will stay up one way or another, and the supply is low in the foreseeable future. That is why I think that a crash is not likely to happen in Spokane. Instead, what could happen is a correction back to the normal 8% appreciation trend line. So if you enjoy this kind of technical analysis of the Spokane real estate market, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below of what other topics you would like me to cover. This is Dennis Isip, over and out.